WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American over here in Germany, tasting often rare and exotic whiskeys. Today, it's not about rare and exotic whiskeys, it's about the OSWAs, the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. Yay! Last year, I was privileged to be a contributor to the the OSWAs. And this year, I also get to participate. Yay! So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen here and show you a little bit about what's going on, and then show and share a little bit about the results that we in Germany on our unofficial little survey have. So the OSWAs, the Online Scotch Whisky Awards, celebrating the best in whiskey, back for a second year. All right, so we had the winners of last year. So we had here the best entry-level single malt back then was the Aaron 10. The best blended Scotch or blended malt was the Johnny Walker 15. The best non-grain whiskey was the Rare Breed. The best distillery was Springbank. The best independent bottler was Signatory. The best new distillery was Atnamochen. The best world whiskey was Redbreast 15. The best single malt Scotch whiskey 2021 was then the Aaron 10. So now what we have here is we have it's not all about Scotch. Actually, they now have 9 categories. I'll get to that in a second. And from these 9 categories, only one single category is about single malt Scotch whiskey. Everything else could be about anything else in the world. All right, so what we have here is a schedule. What's going on now is basically since the 25th of August, they've been asking core contributors to actually to give nominations. They're harvesting the nominations, and they're going to actually refine all the nominations, all the categories. And on the 24th of September, they're going to actually release these categories with those nominations and a box with you. Fill in your own gap, whatever it's called, the audience choice, your public choice, whatever. And there we're going to actually start voting everyone. And then on the 5th of November, there's going to be an award ceremony where Roy and Ralphie are going to therefore present the winners of each categories. So the contributors. So WhiskeyTube is like a show with channels as different presenters. I like that. So we have Ralphie.com, we have Aquavite, Roy, we have the Bon Accord, the place people like to go when they're in Scotland there. The Ensign Ebert, a pub up by the castle, which I have never been to. We have Eric Waite, Whiskey Studies. He was there last year. Maltreview.com is new this year. If I remember correctly, the Malt Box Whiskey is new this year. Malt Reviewers were there last year. Vin from No Nonsense Whiskey was there last year. Keith, I haven't seen much from Keith, to be honest, in the last year, but he's still in there. That's great. The Malted Man Cave. Maybe the algorithm here on YouTube's just not pushing him like it used to. Jason from the Mash and Drum doing fantastic work over there in Ohio. Scotch for Dummies over there in Indianapolis, Indiana. Scotch Test Dummies, Scott and Bart. A lot of things I've done on YouTube has been due to inspiration from those two guys. We have Jeremy up at the Sippers Social Club up in Canada. Swedish Whiskey Girl, yay! One of the very few people outside of England or outside of the UK or the North America with me together. I love that. Trending Sea up in Canada. The Whiskey Diary over in Boston. Whiskey Novice up in Northern Ireland. The Whiskey Tribe over in Texas, doing fantastic. Sheila, I'm sorry. I don't know. Is she in Mexico? Is she in Portugal? She's a globetrotter. She's doing good stuff. The Whiskey Friend over there in England. Here, Rob, Whiskey in the Six, together with Jeremy from the Sipper Social Club, doing great job. Me, Whiskey Mystery. Here we have Phil and Deepa, love them. Whiskey Neighbor, great job he's doing up in Canada. The Whiskey Sisters, to be very honest, I looked at this list. I was like, I don't know them. They are a podcast. They started January 2022. I've listened to one podcast so far. Excellent. They're doing great things there. Their season 1 has been completed. They'll start the next season, and I expect good things. So, hey, good that they're there. Whiskey Wednesday, very, very nice. And, of course, Whiskey Whistle used to be over in Korea. Now he's back in North America. Now let's go to the categories. And what we're going I love this from Bruno Munari. It's complicate to simple. To simplify is complicated. Yeah, it's very, very simple to make something complicated. It's very difficult. To simplify is the more difficult task, and I totally agree. So what we have here are these categories. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the categories up here, and you are going to follow along with the votes that we in my community actually gave. My community called the WhiskyJason Superfan community. They're on Patreon and here on YouTube. I have about 150 people that support me monthly with about €1 or €2 a month, depends on where you're at. And with this community, there'll be a video one day about this. I actually decide on a lot of the content of my channel, not the actual bottles that I taste, but actually in my German channel, what type of blind tastings do we do? What bottles are in those blind tastings? I have a lot of surveys, and we do a lot of democratic questions, and they guide and help me make good decisions in many of these different areas. And so I actually took these 9 categories, asked them what different things should be in the Online Scotch Whisky Awards, OSWAs, and here are their answers. Good. So category number 1, best value whiskey. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to read the text that Roy and Ralphie gave us to know what that means. These are the fairly priced whiskeys that still offer great quality and help people take the first steps, yet still provide great sipping for experienced drinkers. This is where we celebrate the whiskeys that are still attainable despite continually rising prices in whiskey. So the best value whiskey. So I asked my community, of the 150, about 55 people actually answered. And the number 1 answer for us in Germany is Bunne Haben 12-year-old. Second place is Lafroy Quarter Cask. Third is Legic 10. Then I'm really happy about this, Woodford Reserve Double Oak. Then Arran 10, the winner last year. Kilcairn 12, Tobermory 12, Highland Park 12, Glendronach 12, Taliska 12, Compass Box, Orchard House, Bowmore 12, and Ardmore 12. Now, all those that I just had a few votes are not very important, but Bunne 12, Lafroy Quarter Cask, Legic, Woodford Reserve, and basically Arran 10 are the whiskeys viewed in Germany as a great value for money. Let's move over to the second category. We have the best blended whiskeys. Now here we started having a little bit of confusion. Maybe Roy, maybe Aquavite, or Ralphie will understand this confusion because, to be very, very honest, we have a great difficulty in the world applying Scotch definitions to world whiskeys. For example, the term single malt. Yeah, what is single malt? In America, it's not defined. It's going to be defined, hopefully by next year, but it's not defined yet. In Europe, the European Union defined what single malt is in the year 2019. It's been 3 years that we have a legal definition of single malt. I'm not really 100% sure that actually Japan has a definition of what single malt is or what it isn't. And so if we're not even legally clear what single malt is, how can we be clear about what is a blended whiskey and what is a blended malt whiskey? And what's the differentiations between the two? They're very clear with the Scottish Whisky Association, the SWA. But outside of that, it's sometimes up to our own personal interpretation to understand what was meant. And we had confusion in Germany. All right, so blends are not all about mass consistency, is the phrase that they said here on the OSWA website. It's often said that truly great blends can deliver an experience greater than the sum of its parts. Some of the best of the most celebrated whiskeys are blended whiskeys. So it doesn't define what a blended whiskey is. It assumes that we understand what a blended whiskey is because Scotch whiskey is a blended whiskey. Single malt Scotch whiskey is not. And so you understand my problem here. This third category was best blended malt whiskey, and we actually gave similar answers to both, which is, of course, a little bit of a shame. So the best blended whiskey 2022 was a White Heather 15-year-old. Billy Walker put it out, and it was a great success in Germany. The next one, the second one, was Nikka from the Barrel, which is actually a blended whiskey from Japan. There's grain and there's single malt in there, which means there's something made on a pot and there's something made on a column still. And then number 7 is Johnny Walker Green, which is, once again, not a blended scotch. Then we have Black Bottle, which is a blended scotch. And then we have something which is provided by our Lidl, which is our discounter supermarket over here, Glen Albe, the 30-year-old. So also that is a blended malt and not a blended scotch. So once again, confusion, at least in Germany, with these categories. So the best blended malt whiskey, here we do have a little bit of a definition. It says where blended whiskeys utilize various grains. These use only different malts. Blended malt is a quickly growing specific category. Some of the most interesting and attainable releases in recent times have been blended malts. So once again, this is not 100% technically true in Scotland, let alone the rest of the world. There is a Loch Lomond grain whiskey made from 100% malted barley. And yet, when they mix that Loch Lomond together with something else, it would be considered a blended whiskey and not a blended malt whiskey. So it's not only about the malt, it's about the process of distillation, pot still versus column still. Very, very important here. And it's very, very, I'm going to use the word confusing / complicated for people who are just getting into the industry. All right, so the best blended malt here, according to our answers in Germany, are, ta-da, White Heather 15 again. And then we have Johnny Walker Green Label. Yay, again. Then we have Compass Box Spice Tree, which I like. We have the Campbelltown Loch, which I also enjoy. Big Pete, very, very good. There's a lot of different ones. We have the Compass Box Orchard House, the Spaniard from Compass Box, Douglas Lang, Rock Island, and we had the Double Peat Blended Isla and Speyside Malt, which is an interesting independent bottler as well. All right, so and the very, very interesting thing with both these categories, I have not yet had the White Heather 15 in my glass, so I would not have nominated it. And another thing that some of my people that voted here, and maybe other people when they vote, I did not communicate enough. I think Ralphie and Roy are communicating enough. If you haven't tried it, just don't vote for it. You can only vote for those things that you've had. If I give you 8 things and I say, hey, which is the best of the 8? You say, well, I haven't had 5 of these. Then you can only ignore those. And you can only pick from those 3 that you've had, which is the best. Or answer none, which is great. All right. So now we talk about the problem of categories. This is finally addressed because this is how often World Whiskey thinks. We have the 4th category, and it's called Best Non-Malt Whiskey 2022. Here is where you can get creative. This category is open to all grain types, interesting, except single malt. So once again, what is the difference between a non-malt and a blended whiskey? Sorry, I'm being a little bit stupid, but my people in Germany were stupid, and I think other people are going to be just as stupid around the world. Or I'm going to, instead of using stupid, confused. All right, so here we can put in our rye whiskeys. Here we can put in our corn whiskeys. Here we can put in our wheat whiskeys. Here we can put in our bourbon whiskeys, and anything else is included, and opening up as many styles of whiskey, or W-E-Y at the end. So our group actually said the best non-malt whiskey is Redbreast 12 cask strength. Second position, Woodford Reserve Double Oak, like. Then came Eagle Rare. Then came Peerless Rye Whiskey. Then came New Riff Kentucky Straight Bourbon, as well as a second mention for the rye whiskeys. Then came Wilderness Trail Small Batch Bottled Bond. Then came Iron Root Esoteric. I brought a bottle over from Germany. One person mentioned that. Then we had Wild Turkey Rare Breed, which actually won last year, but is not the most famous thing in Germany, or favorite thing. And we have the Strathclyde 32-year-old, distilled 1989, Cadenhead's authentic release. I think that was a single barrel. So it's very, very difficult for the world to choose the best non-malted whiskey if it's a single barrel. Now, Peerless, New Riff, Wilderness Trail, Iron Root, all of these are my fault. Just like last year, Atnamochen won because Roy was at the distillery, because Roy raves about Atnamochen. He influences directly or indirectly his fans, his community, rightfully so, just like I do. They voted for that as the best new distillery. These are the products I help import over here to Germany. Peerless, New Riff, Wilderness Trail, hopefully one day Iron Root as well. And that's the reason why our community in Germany, my community in Germany, place these non-malt whiskeys so high. Yeah, now let's move on to our next category, Best Distillery 2022. Question number 5. We actually in Germany fell into the trap of only thinking about single malt distilleries in Scotland. This could have been anything, anywhere in the world. All right, so which producers have brought the best experiences in the past year? Many are committed to available and affordable quality, while others chase what the market will stand. We celebrate the former. All right, so we want available, affordable whiskeys. What are the best distilleries here? In Germany, we thought they were very clustered. They were very, very close. There was not anything that stood out as the winner, but there are a lot of different great distilleries out there. In Scotland, it's the only ones we mentioned. Lafroig, Ben Romach, Glenallachie, Arran, Bunnahabhain, Leduc, Springbank, Tobermory, Edradour, Deanston, Glengyle, Loch Lomond, and Glencadam. Those are the ones we mentioned here. There are some other great distilleries out there. Middleton is a fantastic distillery. Buffalo Trace, fantastic distillery. So over in Japan, we have some fantastic distilleries. I think McMurdo has been doing their job for a longer time now. They are a great distillery. And we can talk about all these other distilleries as well, but they weren't mentioned. So let's see which ones are going to be mentioned in the next year. All right, question number 6 was the best new distillery 2022. And it says here, we are experiencing an unprecedented time of growth in whiskey with new products coming from new producers like never before. With this category, we'd like to highlight new producers who have been founded in the last 10 years in recognition of their achievements. Interesting enough that actually my people in Germany automatically thought outside the box. They did not think Scotch. They said, for example, the first two are in in Scotland. Nickneen, totally agree with that, and Annandale. Annandale has been quiet this year. So I was very surprised that Annandale popped up on the radar at all. It would have been down at the bottom, I thought, but hey, apparently they had such a great impression last year, or I'm just out of the loop. The next one they talked about is a German distiller. It's called St. Kilian, which I totally agree. The next one they talked about is Wilderness Trail. Totally agree. The next one, New Riff, then Atnamochen. You notice in UK with Roy's fans, Atnamochen would have been number 1. Over here, it's not. Lindor's Abbey, they're doing an interesting job in Germany as well. Glenwivis, a crowdsourced distillery up there. Dornach, glaube ich, is das. Great stuff they're doing. That is also involved, if I remember correctly, with Thompson Brothers. All right, Lochlee, yeah, they appeared in the German market, did not leave a good impression. And Sagamore, a brand new one also that has very limited coverage over here in Germany. All right, so moving on to number 7, what we have is the best independent bottler in 2022. We are privileged in whiskey that we can enjoy our favorite spirit not only through the official releases, but also from independent bottlers with a different take on things. Focusing on quality at a fair price, we award the indies who have excelled. With independent bottlers, it's very, very important to understand that they're often local. which means that an independent bottler in the UK might not be available in America, or an independent bottler in America might not be available in Australia. And the same thing happens with us here in Germany. We have German independent bottlers that are not available worldwide. And therefore, the independent bottler that we recommended from Germany is a German exclusive, A Dream of Scotland. Now, one of their bottles did make it on the Whiskey Tribe, and a few of their bottles go through auctions to other places. But basically, we have more demand than supply for a lot of the Dream of Scotland from Marco Bonn, von Brüller Whiskey House by Cologne, Germany, than he can actually give us. And so these bottles are bought quicker than they can be produced in some cases. Number 2 is the category that won last year, Signatory. Number 3 is a German independent bottler as well that came on the scene the last 3 years called the Cask Hound. The guy who is behind is Thilo Schnabel. Then we have North Star from UK. We have the Thompson Brothers, which I'm really looking forward to some of the stuff. Another independent German independent bottler called Anam Na Halba. And then we have Compass Box, Murray McDavid, Lady of the Glen, Berry Brothers, and Rudd. So things that I've heard of at least, but at least 3 of these probably you outside of Germany have never heard of. All right, so it's very, very good to see that the German independent bottlers are doing a great job in Germany. Let's move over to the next category, and this was the Best World Whiskey 2022. Now, this category celebrates the best the world has to offer. And we are experiencing an unprecedented explosion in global whiskey production. And this category recognizes that phenomenon with products from any category, anywhere. It must just be defined as whiskey with a Y or with an EY. Now, once again, the question is, what is the difference between the best non-malt whiskey 2022 and the best world whiskey 2022? Now, unfortunately, a couple of my people that did this survey said, Jason, after you revealed your results, I would have voted for that as well. But it's not a world whiskey. A world whiskey is anything outside of basically the UK, which they included with England, which they included with Scotland, which they included with Ireland. And so they basically said, hey, that's not a world whiskey. A world whiskey is different. Now, for the OSWA, basically they're saying anything outside of Scotland. That's something we have to remember, that it's not as clear for us outside of Scotland as maybe for the people inside of Scotland what's meant by world. All right, so once again, we have here a little bit of a German phenomenon. We have a French independent bottler that we declared to be the best world whiskey of 22, and it's Michel Couvert Overaged. Now, once again, the same independent bottler, A Dream of Scotland from Marco Bonn, together with a second person in Germany, that is Frank Jäger. They are the distributors of Michel Couvert for Germany. And they're doing a fantastic job at getting liquid to lips. And people have tried this and they love it. Now, I am fairly certain that Michel Couvert Overaged is not readily available in America, Canada, Australia. I'm not even sure it's available in Ireland or Scotland. But over here in Germany, this is something people rant and rave about and love. So, the best world whiskey 2022, according to our opinion, for position number 2, Redbreast 21. Then we have my favorite, Sagamore Double Oaked. Good stuff. Then we have a German distiller, Ellsburn, the Emperor Way. Then we have another one from Ellsburn, the Iberica. Then we have Starward, which is from Australia. Congratulations. Then Glenfarclas 40. Yellow Spark 12 from Ireland. Milk and Honey from Israel. Very good. Then St. Kilian, in particular the number 3, their 3rd edition. And we have someone who voted for Jack Daniel's Coy Hill. I haven't had Jack Daniel's Coy Hill, let alone the rest of the world out there would know that is the best world whiskey. It might be, but who knows, because I have not tried it. All right, and then finally the last category, and the only category that's specific to Scotch. I think we need to emphasize that more with the OSWAs. Only number 9, the last category, is specific to Scotch. All right, and there's always the problem with taking Scottish definitions and putting in world whiskey, which don't often fit. All right, the best Scotch single malt 2022. While there are no further definitions on price or style, as long as it's Scotch single malt, this whiskey should be something that is attainable, offers value, and is widely available. In my opinion, you just killed the best Scotch single malt. We turned the best Scotch single malt into the best value Scotch single malt. All right, here we celebrate our Scotch whiskey community with the best the category has to offer. All right, very, very, very good. So what we have here, and this is very, very much again the German preference. It is going to be Lafroig cast strength batch. In this case, 14. Could have been batch 12, 13, 10, whatever. But we in Germany, at least my community, thinks that Lafroig cast strength batch 14 was the best Scotch whiskey of 2022. Number 2 was then Glenallachie 10-year-old cast strength. It was batch 5 or 6. Then we have the suggestion I made, Edredauer 12 Caledonia, like that a lot. A whiskey that was awesome, might actually top my list of the best whiskey I had in 2022, is the Edredauer 22 Oloroso Sherry Cask. Is it widely available? No, there was 500, 600 bottles worldwide. Glenallachie 15, very, very nice. Legic 10, Taliska 10, Glengarry 15, not even sure that's available worldwide anymore. It was officially a travel retail exclusive. Port Charlotte 10, Ben Romack cast strength. Kilkerran Peat in progress, batch 6. Atnemochen AD/02.22 cast strength. It was an interesting whiskey. I don't know if it's the best Scotch whiskey of 2022, but maybe Roy might think so, or Blatnoch 11. So that is very, very, very interesting. All right, those were the 9 categories. Those were the suggestions that my community actually made for these categories. What I would love for you to do is actually down below in the comments. What I would love you to do is to go to www.oswa.co.uk, or just type in OSWA whiskey, and you'll be from Google or whatever your search engine you use automatically connected then with the right place. Go and vote. And then if you want to, the voting has not maybe opened when you watch this video, please type down your favorite, write down your category, and write down what you think you like the best. All right. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for subscribing. Thank you very much for sharing with others. And don't forget to share the OSWA, the Online Scotch Whisky Awards from Roy, from Aquavite, and Ralphie. And let's get 100,000 plus people voting this year and actually determining and showing the industry, the whiskey industry, that we have a voice, and it's just not about awards that we pay a lot of money for, but rather that we as an online community are a driving force for whiskey purchases in this world. One last statement at the end. Dear retailers that are watching this video, now there is the possibility to sign up on a list at the OSWA that you promise, at least for the next couple of months after this award, to keep the prices of the winners at that price you had before the awards. I would love to ask you to join this crowd of people who actually want to support us as a consumer, who are not, and the first and primary goal to let us bleed through the nose, pay through the nose for things that Roy and Ralphie suggest, but rather actually celebrate this community and reward this community for voting for good whiskeys that you can actually provide us at I'm just going to use the word fair price. The price you had before the awards should stay the same price after the awards. That would be fabulous. Thank you very much for considering that aspect as well. Whiskey Jason, see you soon. Bye-bye.